السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والجنة للموحدين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين، والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على الركن الأعظم أفضل من تقدم ومن تأخر وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Ahbab al-Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam, may the peace, mercy and blessings of Allah be with all of you. For those who are joining at home, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill your homes with His blessings and with His guidance. For those of us who have made the effort to come to the masjid on this evening, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the reward of spending the time in His house, and may He forgive us for all of our mistakes and shortcomings. Allahumma ameen. My beloved brothers and sisters, my respected community, in the year 2023, inshallah, we are embarking on a new journey. Many of you might recall that in the year 2022, we were discussing together the Muslim community of our dreams. And we wanted to at least envision and imagine the Muslim community that we are going to build together. The good news is the dream is over. I'm just joking. The discussions about the dream are done. That means the time to actually do the work and to make the dream a reality has started. We are moving along, inshallah, to a new series of discussions, and inshallah we intend to have these weekly halaqat every Saturday evening, studying al-fiqh al-Islami, the Islamic fiqh. Okay? In a very simple nutshell, the Islamic fiqh is the study of how we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It includes stuff like the rules and procedures of wudu, tayammum, ghusl, salah, all the different types of salah, Jumu'ah, Eid, Janazah, istikhara, and much more. It includes the understanding of zakah. How do we perform zakah? How do we pay our zakah? To whom we give our zakah? How we calculate our zakah? It includes the understanding of how we practice fasting in the month of Ramadan. What are we going to do? How to begin the fast? How to end the fast? What nullifies the fast? What is sunnah to do during the fast? Etc. And then eventually also the fiqh of Hajj and Umrah. How does an individual perform the Hajj and the Umrah? What are the pillars of the Hajj? What are the sunan of the Hajj? What is mandatory in the Hajj? What is recommended in the Hajj? What is prohibited during the Hajj? All of this, inshallah, are things that we are going to cover as part of a lengthy series studying the fiqh of how we worship Allah, how we conduct and how we perform our ibadat. Off the bat, a question will come: what is the meaning of fiqh? What does fiqh mean? Lots of students, and his students traveled. He ended up in Indonesia and they taught the local people, and that's how the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i became the predominant madhab in that region or in that area. Another fun fact for you guys is, somehow, Allah knows the real hikmah, I didn't explore it too much, but it seems that in the coastlines of the ummah, wherever or whatever was accessible easily by water, the Shafi'i madhab spread. Right? As you go deeper into the inner territories of the Muslim land, you find other madhahib are practiced. But along the coastline of the Muslim ummah, the Shafi'i madhab is dominant. Why? How did it happen? Allah knows. Maybe the students of the Imam were, traveling by water and they happened to embark on journeys to different areas, and wherever they parked is where they started teaching. Allah knows best, but this is a little introduction to what is the meaning of fiqh itself. One more time, fiqh is described as the human understanding and practices of Islamic law. Islamic law is the Sharia. The human understanding of that, the human understanding of how to practice it, is what we define as fiqh. Very good. Then we move along, and the first thing that we have to learn is, if the fiqh is based on Islamic law, what is Islamic law? What is Islamic law? Islamic law is called Sharia. In the Arabic language, Islamic law translates to Sharia. And that's why the funny joke is, have you ever heard the term in the English language, Sharia law? They talk about Sharia law all the time. It's a unique term because it means law. Like, who talks like that? Sharia law or Sharia law literally means law. Doesn't make any sense. Sharia itself means law. You don't have to put the word law after it. In any case, Sharia means law. What type of law are we talking about? We're talking about the Islamic law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. So this is not the law of Arabia, it's not the law of Indonesia, it's not the law of Canada, it's not man-made law, it's law that was revealed by Rabbul Alameen from above the heavens, and He sent it with the angel Jibreel alayhi salam to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and our Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he taught his Sahaba and he spread it, to whoever was around him. The Islamic law covers all aspects of Muslim life. And this is important to understand, that Islamic law is not restricted to any branch of life. Islamic law is not family law only. Islamic law is not corporate law only. Islamic law is not financial laws only. It's not, government laws or parliamentary laws only. Islamic law covers all aspects of life. Anything that the human being, the individual does in his life, Islamic law has an umbrella over it. Anything that happens in the society where Muslims live, Islamic law has an umbrella over it. Even states and countries are under the umbrella of Islamic law in the Islamic perspective. Question comes, what are the sources of Islamic law? What are the sources of Islamic law? Just to share with you guys quickly, inshallah, where I'm pulling this information from. I should have done this in the beginning, but I'm using, a lot of my personal notes from my studies in Al-Azhar University to refresh my memory and share with you guys, inshallah, something that hopefully will be of benefit to you guys. I have my own summaries of the courses that I took, as well as my own notes. And one day, inshallah, if we decide to go to that level, I have my exams and stuff as well. We can examine you guys and see what you learned and how much you retained, inshallah. So what are the sources of Islamic law? Now we understand that fiqh is the human understanding of the Sharia. The Sharia is Islamic law. Islamic law is coming from Allah, and it covers all of the aspects of the Muslim life. Then what is the source of the Islamic law? Where do we find the Islamic law in the first place? And the answer to that question is, there are 4 sources of Islamic law. In the year 2023, I also have a commitment that I have made, that I'm going to lecture less and teach more. We're going to engage with you guys, inshallah. For those of you who are watching online at home, maybe one day, inshallah, we'll find a way to engage with you guys as well. Or I'll give you guys an excellent idea, just come to the masjid. Visit Masjid Istiqlal and you can be part of the Jama'ah, inshallah, and you can, interact and engage with us. But of course, many of you are at home for various reasons. Some of you are not even local, you might be abroad. We appreciate you joining and we pray that you find this beneficial. So what are the sources of Islamic law? Where does Islamic law come from? I need to hear from you guys, brothers and sisters. 2 are obvious. And no. Ustad Agus, we have to wait for him. Quran is one, taban, the word of Allah, the book of Allah is one source of Islamic law. What else? Hadith or the sunnah of the Prophet. We don't say hadith, we say the sunnah of the Prophet. And I'll get to that shortly, inshallah. We're going to explain what these are. What's number 3? Don't tell me my madhab. Ijma' al-ulama or ijma' al-muslimin. Excellent. What does that mean? The consensus of the Muslims. If the Muslim scholars especially agree on something and they are unanimous in their agreement, then that is a source of Islamic law. I'll explain why. What's the 4th one? Somebody other than Pa Subhan. I know he knows. 4th, you can guess, it's fine. Your face is not on camera, only mine is. No, we're not going there yet. Imam Abu Hanifa mentions, by the way, ijtihad and other things as well. But the 4th source of Islamic law is what we call qiyas. Okay, qiyas is analogy. We can extract Islamic law by way of analogy. And I'm going to inshallah explain each of these and perhaps provide an example. The Quran as a source of law, everyone understands. Simple example. Allah says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, until the end of that lengthy ayah. Allah says, when any of you wants to stand to make salah, let him wash his face and wash his hands up to his elbows until the end of the description of the wudu. This law of making wudu before salah, Allah prescribed it in the Quran. So Quran is the number one source of Islamic law. The second source of Islamic law is the Sunnah. What is the Sunnah? The Sunnah is more than just hadith. Hadith is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, but the Sunnah is the practices of the Prophet ﷺ. If the Prophet ﷺ did something and he advised that this is something that we should do, then this can be a source of law. If the Prophet ﷺ allowed something to be done, this is also a source of law. The Prophet ﷺ had an obligation from Allah to stop any wrong or to stop any evil practice in his community. So if the Prophet ﷺ saw the people doing something and he allowed it and he didn't say anything, then this is what we call the approval of the Prophet ﷺ, the tacit approval of the Prophet. And this can be a source of legislation or a source of law again. So Quran is the number one source of law. The Sunnah of the Prophet is the second source of law. That includes his statements, his actions, his approvals, anything he endorsed is all source of law. Third is the ijma'. Ijma' meaning if the Muslims agree on something, then that can be a source of law. Why is this the case? The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, لَن تَجْتَمِعُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى الضَّلَالَةِ. My nation will never unite and agree upon misguidance. Concept. We have, as the Ummah of Islam, as followers of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, we benefit from a level of guidance that Allah provides to us collectively. You know, there's an expression that is made in our tradition, Yadullahi ma'al jama'ah. The hand of Allah, the support of Allah is with the jama'ah, with the community. When you are united and you make decision together, the help of Allah is with you. And if you just think about it rationally, think in your family. Some brothers might panic and disagree. But if you make a decision at home by yourself, chances are you could make a wrong decision. It might be harmful to your kids, your wife might be inconvenienced, maybe it's not the best solution. But imagine if you consult with the whole family and you make a family decision collectively. The chances that this decision will be bad for your children or for your wife is minimal. Why? Because you consulted with each other and you made a collective decision. Anytime you make a decision collectively together with other people, the chance of error is minimized. 2 brains is better than 1, right? I don't know if I told you guys a funny joke in the Arabic language. They say the problem with the brain is everyone likes their own and thinks it's the best. But many times, my brain and your brain and his brain and her brain, if we put it together, it's actually better. It's better than my brain by itself. Now we have many different perspectives, many different opinions, and we can make sound judgment. Besides that logic, there is the spiritual side of it, which is that the Prophet ﷺ promised us that Allah will not allow his entire ummah to be misguided and go somewhere. An example, the Christians, the followers, those who claim to be followers of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, as a unit collectively were misguided. Somebody convinced them that Jesus is the Son of God, and there's this Trinity concept, and en masse they were misguided. May Allah protect us. That type of misguidance, by the guarantee of the Prophet ﷺ, will never happen to his ummah. This ummah of Islam will never en masse decide mathalan to make Hajj in Jakarta, for example, instead of Mecca. It's not going to happen. There is no way that the whole ummah will agree to do something wrong and everybody will abandon the haqq and go and do the batil, go and do the falsehood. So, ijma', the unity of the ummah, when they agree on something, is a source of law. Somebody might ask, what is an example of this in history? Prime example, excellent example, probably the first time that ijma' was utilized was the selection of the Khalifa of the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Ajma'ul Ummah, the Ummah at that time collectively agreed, unanimously, that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is the rightly, guided successor of our beloved Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And that was the right decision. So when the Ummah gets together and makes a decision, that decision carries weight and it has strength and it can be followed as a practice of law. Somebody might ask, where do we apply ijma' today? Where can we do the ijma' today? The ijma' today is done in many different levels. One example I'll share with you guys, there are councils of scholars, right? So we have, for example, in Canada, we have something called the Canadian Council of Imams, CCI, right? This is a group of Muslim imams from coast to coast in Canada who meet regularly, I believe it's once a month, and they discuss issues and they have specific mandates that they work on. If they decide something, if they reach some decision, then there is some level of consensus, at least at a Canadian level. The Canadian Ummah has reached a conclusion with its collective religious leadership that this is a direction we're going to go. And that is something that is sound. And as a Muslim, I can feel very comfortable following that direction. Another example, even above that level, is the Fiqh Council of North America. This is a group, an organization, a body that gathers the most prominent and most accredited Muslim scholars of North America. And they discuss critical issues, major issues facing the Muslim community, with a specific emphasis, I would say, on contemporary issues, new issues that are facing the Ummah. The latest one that I heard about, and I didn't read much into it or invest much time into it, is they are investigating now, because the questions will start coming soon, how do we gauge halal and haram for synthetic meat? Meaning lab-grown meat. If the meat didn't come from an animal, but it came from a cell that was grown and then multiplied, where do we figure out, is this halal, is this haram? Is there an ethical way to produce that meat? Is there a haram way to produce that meat? It's a completely new spectrum. It's a completely new issue. All of the Imams of the Madhahib never addressed this matter. Then today there is the Fiqh Council, scholars from all across the continent that are debating this. When they reach a collective ruling and issue a fatwa, the Muslim Ummah can take their guidance as a source of law and feel very comfortable that this is part of our religion and we can act and move forward. What else was there? Qiyas. Qiyas is logical analogy. Logical analogy. What is logical analogy? It's permissible for the Muslim scholars, taban, me and you should not be doing qiyas. We should be referring our matters to scholars that have more knowledge than us. Allah commands us in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask people who know if you don't know, right? But what is this qiyas? This qiyas is, we have a new issue. And we don't have a hukum, we don't have a ruling in the Sharia, in the Quran or in the Sunnah about this issue. But we have something very similar to it. Then we can make an analogy. We can look at the ruling over there, look at the issue over here, find out what is the underlying illah. In Arabic the word is illah. What is illah? Illah is the reason for the ruling. If the reason for the ruling over here can match with the reason on this side, then we can apply the same ruling. The textbook example always is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He prohibited, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu innamal khamru wal maysiru wal ansabu wal azlamu rijsum min amal ash-shaytani fajtanibuh. O you who believe, drinking alcohol, gambling and many other things are forms of the acts of shaitan, then stay far away from it. Two things in our time that's Muslim scholars may have had to decide on. What do we do about something like heroin or cocaine? Somebody's asking, is it halal or haram? I couldn't find it in the books of fiqh. The hadith I looked in Sahih Bukhari, I didn't find the hadith about cocaine. What should I do? What's the ruling? Then the alim, the Muslim scholar, will do qiyas. He will say, Allah made alcohol haram. What's the reason? The illah is it intoxicates the mind. A person who consumes that cannot think clearly. Okay, this substance you're asking about, what's wrong with it? it may cause you to lose your mind. We have a match. The illah over here, the illah over here is the same. What do? We borrow the ruling of this and we apply it here. The illah of intoxication leads to the ruling of haram for alcohol. Therefore, the fact that the stability of one's mind will be affected due to this substance will lead to the same conclusion, that this substance is haram to consume. Another example, gambling. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was, betting on many different things, many different types of gambling. And the Prophet ﷺ warned against it, Quran prohibited it. In our time, maybe, none of us and maybe none of those who we know will go to the casino and do what is traditional gambling, right? Go to the casino or play the lottery. Maybe people would not do that. They'll say that this is gambling, this is haram. But I found out there's a new phenomenon. People don't gamble the old way. People now are into sports betting. And they say it's part of the game, it's part of the fun. I feel like I have something on the line too. I feel connected to the team that I support. I feel emotionally invested. But you say, Habibi, let's compare. The gambling that Allah and His Messenger talked about, what is the issue there? The issue there is, A, there's an addiction. And that's a completely separate topic. B, there is potential waste of resources, waste of money. Okay, sports betting, what's happening here? Okay, we know for a fact there's an addiction. There's a massive industry that is running off of this. Young men especially, who are addicted to sports, they love their teams, they support them, they're fanatics. Sports is not bad. But then they cross the bridge to say, now we're going to put our money where our mouth is. And then you find out what? Lots of money is wasted. People are in very desperate situations. And we have a crisis in society. What happens now? The Muslim scholar can do qiyas and say clearly this is very similar to what Allah prohibited. Although the hadith of the Prophet might talk about a very different type of gambling, a very different type of betting, but the reality is this is very similar to what we have here today. And so they established the same hukum. This is haram, just like that was haram. This is what we call qiyas. Everyone on the same page?
Yep.
Any questions so far? Good.
What will be the classification of qiyas living in the present world? Like for example, like darura, some people say that mortgage of one house is okay because that's what the ruling is.
Yes.
So to our understanding, what could be ijma we understand the
Yes.
certain authentic authorities. So qiyas to us, how we qualify? These 2, 3, 4, 10 people have said. So what would be the qualification of our understanding for qiyas?
Very good question. The brother is asking, how do we qualify qiyas in our time? Like anybody can do his own analogy, right? But where do we figure out that this analogy is sound? You will rely on experts. Like in any field, I'll give you an example. The COVID pandemic was something new. The medical experts made lots of analogy to previous pandemics to come up with public health policy to figure out how to move forward. Like the masking idea. In no textbook was it written that when you experience COVID-19, take a mask and put it on and tell everybody around you to put a mask on. But they studied history. They said, okay, when there was viral infections and many of these diseases were airborne, what was the solution? The solution was people used masks. Different type of mask. It wasn't the blue one, it was the yellow one, it was the red one, whatever the story is. But who made that qiyas? Me and you? The guy in the street? No, the professionals in that field. The medical professionals in that field made the analogy, did the research and figured out that this is like this and we should take experience from that and borrow what we did over there, put it together and come up with a roadmap to move forward. Likewise, with our religion, I'm not going to do the qiyas, you're not going to do the qiyas, right? The qiyas will be done by the scholar who has proper understanding. This will lead me to the second point, which is, in order for someone to do the qiyas, they need two things, technically. They need sound knowledge of the Islamic tradition, but that's not enough. They need deep, sound knowledge of the matter at hand that we are facing. So if you talk about mortgages, for example, and I'm not going to change the topic of the halaqah to be about mortgage, because then we will be here till after Isha, right? And I'm not going to give a ruling for mortgage here either, but we can discuss privately, inshallah. But mortgage as a prime example. You will need somebody who not just, okay, there's one level that you can say mortgage has interest in the contract, therefore interest, the ayah in the Quran says it's haram, therefore the mortgage is haram. Okay, very good. Let's agree with that for 1 second. Okay, where are you suggesting that the Muslim will live? The Muslim should rent, because we cannot buy. Unless you have $1 million cash, then you go buy. Okay, very good. Imagine if we applied this guy's fatwa, and tomorrow all the brothers and sisters who had homes sold it and looked for a place to rent. Do you know where we will go? We will try to come camp at Istiqlal, we'll run out of space, and then we'll be homeless. Practicality, you have to think logically. So that hukum is very good until you go and figure out in the contemporary world that, wait a second, that's not how it works. This guy had proper knowledge of the tradition. He knew Quran, he knew Sunnah, he knew the hukum of Allah, but he didn't understand the world today. He didn't understand life today. Therefore, his analogy, his qiyas was not fruitful, it wasn't practical. And I'm not the one who's going to say halal or haram left or right, at least not now, we can discuss privately. But there's another level that you can look at it at. Okay, the Muslim needs a place to live. Muslim needs a place to live. It so happens in this country that we live in, Islamic law is not applied in finance. The financial system, the financial markets are not controlled by our law. There is an alternative system, an alternative law that governs the markets over here. The government itself makes use of that system to facilitate home ownership for its citizens and residents. Like now, I know interest rate is high and everybody's crying. But when the interest rate is 1%, if you had $1 million, would you ever lend it to somebody for 1%? Would you ever do any business where your profit is 1%? Which genius will invest his money somewhere where the profit, you think RBC and CIBC and all these guys are doing a business and making 1%? Could it be? And the reality is the government of Canada has a huge hand, Bank of Canada has a huge hand, either in subsidizing or in facilitating the process of home ownership using the system that they have. Again, I'm not saying halal or haram, but I'm just answering the brother's question. That you talk good qiyas. Good qiyas needs that level of understanding of, okay, yes, there's interest written in the contract of the home ownership agreement, the mortgage that you get from the bank, yes, there's interest written in there. But what's the story here? Who is making that interest? Are you paying that interest or benefiting from that interest? Do you have an alternative? Is there an alternative market where you can go and get that mortgage agreement without the interest in it? Or restructured in a way that the interest is not there? Again, not to make a fatwa here, but just saying that when you do the qiyas to that level, you need the good understanding of the matter at hand too. To answer the question, finally, I took you for a long ride. To qualify the qiyas in our time, you need somebody who is learned, who is a scholar. It will not be me and you. We are not, scholars or ulama who are specialists in any field. I say that confidently. I am not a specialist in any field, right? I'm a student, somebody who's studying, hoping inshallah to accumulate enough knowledge that I can understand for myself and perhaps, maybe specialize in something or the other and be able to guide our community and the Muslim Ummah into specific areas. Inshallah it will happen. You guys know very well that I have 1 year left of my studies in Azhar. I'm doing exams and I have to get through them. I need all of your dua. But the answer to your question is that you need to have somebody who has good knowledge, Islamic knowledge of the tradition, good knowledge of contemporary realities, good knowledge of the issue that they're trying to find the ruling for, and then with both solid understandings, do the qiyas. Find the illah here, find the illah here, make a match, and then give the fatwa and let the Muslim community move forward. I hope that answers your question. It doesn't really answer your question, but it gives you enough information to spin for a long time until you figure out where you are. May Allah bless you. طيب. So this is the sources of Islamic law, and I think this is just about what we will cover for today. We said that the definition of fiqh is that it's the human understanding of how to practice and live the law in real life. We said the law is the sharia. Where does the sharia come from? It comes from Allah. What are the sources of this law? Quran, Sunnah, Ijma' of the Ummah, and qiyas. Let me see what's next and if it's worth tackling. No. Then last point for you guys, actually we'll stop right here inshallah. And next week we will perhaps move forward, inshallah. I think that's where we are going next, where we are going to talk about water. Okay? The first stage, water, H2O, just like this guy. The first stage of understanding the tahara, the purification in Islam, is understanding the rulings of water. What can we do with water? What kind of water can we use? Can I make wudu with tea? If I put tetli tea bag in the cup, it's hot water, and now there's a tea bag inside. Can I use that to make wudu? Yes or no, and why? Inshallah, these are the type of things that we will discuss, inshallah, next week. Just to give you guys small preview of where we are heading. Allah tells us in the Quran, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. And I have sent down to you from the sky water which is pure. Water in its original state is pure. Then what impurifies it? What nullifies the purity of water? Is there a difference between water that is filthy or water that is najis versus other water which is just not able to purify us? Example, if there is water that's mixed with urine, at some point it will become water that is najis. But water with tea, is it najis? No, we drink it. But can you make wudu with it? You guys probably will say no. I also say no, that's the ruling. But why? And what's the difference? What's the difference in water that has tea in it and water that has urine in it? And where is the separating point in the classification? It's very healthy to know and to understand. I do believe, and even for those of you, mashallah, you guys are here in the masjid, for those of you who are watching at home as well, it's very healthy to study these kind of things. Somebody might say, how does this help me? Or what am I going to do with this kind of knowledge? What you're going to do with this knowledge is you're going to build confidence in your faith. You're going to feel, wow, my religion makes sense. I never knew there was that much thought behind it. These Muslim scholars thought about a lot of things, and they explained a lot of things. And by the way, this religion is practiced until today because of the work of the fuqaha. Because they put so much effort into understanding and explaining and making it practical for me and you. That's why we can live today 1400 years after the time of the Prophet and still read the same Quran and read the same Sunnah, and somebody can still do qiyas and we can still have ijma' from these same sources. Because of the work of the ulama and the work of the fuqaha to understand and to make this stuff make sense. This is also why the religion of Islam is practiced globally. Like, think about it, here in the masjid even. We can have some Indonesian, we can have some Indian, we can have some South African, we can have some Yemeni, we can have some Brazilian, we can have some Canadian. And if you look at it, these guys come from drastically different backgrounds. But they have very similar mindset about some very critical issues in life. How come? The unifying factor is that understanding of this religion, that proper understanding of this religion of Islam, which helps us to appreciate how logical and how sensible this religion is, to a level that we feel fully content to be Muslim and to follow the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially for a younger audience. You know, if you have children, if you have young friends at home, you know, everyone is different, but I found it very helpful to spend the time to study, whether it's fiqh or other sciences of Islam, to appreciate that this religion of ours is not some scam. Forgive me for my choice of words. It's not some, you know, something that somebody made up and it doesn't add up in the end. No, it adds up a lot. Makes lots of sense. Let me close with a powerful statement. There is nothing more logical than the religion of Islam. There is nothing that makes more sense than the religion of Islam. Some of us, we have iman, alhamdulillah, at a level that we will never doubt that. But for those who are in a level that they are questioning, not, you know, questioning the deen, but trying to understand in their mind, does this really make sense? Do we still have to practice it this way? Why do we still have to do that? Do we still have to make wudu? I use sanitizer. My hands are clean. Idea. But you're going to see when we study wudu, when we study tahara, and we study what's water all about, you'll understand and appreciate why Allah prescribed that we live our life a certain way. هذا والله أعلم وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا for attentive listening, for those of you who are here in the masjid, and for your participation. For those of you who are joining online, may Allah bless you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.